Alex, thanks for joining us. What are some of the human rights priorities regarding Indigenous peoples you'd like to see included in the mandate letters?
Well, there's certainly a long list, but at this point, we've reached out to the Prime Minister with 10 overarching priorities with respect to human rights concerns of a whole wide variety in Canada. And certainly, there's a number of issues directly related to the rights of Indigenous peoples in that list of 10. That very much includes, we want to see the unfinished business with respect to Bill C-262 from the last Parliament come back as a priority. This, of course, is the initiative to finally have a legislative framework for implementing the UN Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples in Canada that was thwarted by Conservative senators in the spring. The government is committed to do so. We want to make sure that in this time of minority government with all sorts of other things on their mind, that remains a top priority. We have also highlighted, and this did get a bit of attention during the campaign, the very, very severe situation that the people of Grassy Narrows First Nation continue to face in northwestern Ontario as a result of mercury contamination. The Prime Minister, in the televised leaders debate, made a commitment that he is intending to get it done, and that's particularly the need to build a care home in the community for those suffering the terrible impact and consequences of mercury contamination. It's a promise that's been hanging around for a long time. We certainly need to see that happen. And then a third that I would highlight is certainly the need to move forward very quickly on the outcome of the national inquiry into missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. That, of course, the final report came out just before Parliament rose. We heard a few words from both Minister Bennett and the Prime Minister at the time, but no action was taken, and that needs to start to move quite quickly.
Number one on your list is reducing carbon emissions. Won't this be a bit of a no-brainer to include in the Minister of Climate Change's letter?
Well, it certainly, absolutely, we imagine that there's going to be a lot in the Minister of Environment and Climate Change's letter around reducing carbon emissions. We're concerned that it won't be anywhere near at the level and with sort of the bold targets that are so necessary. What Canada has in place right now, frankly, isn't good enough. It's not going to get us to where we need to be in making our global contribution to addressing this mounting crisis. So we're going to be looking for what kind of action is laid out in the mandate letter, and does it really commit Canada to going further than we've gone so far?
Alex, how can a cabinet minister address something that might be out of their hands, like racial profiling?
Well, racial profiling within policing is a very serious human rights concern in Canada. It impacts on a number of communities, but obviously very much impacts on Indigenous communities in places like Thunder Bay and elsewhere. Now, a minister may not have the direct powers in their hands to end racial profiling per se, and especially in Canada, where policing is largely a matter left to provincial and municipal governments. But Canada has a very important overarching coordination role. Canada does, of course, have authority and responsibility for the RCMP, and they play a significant role in many communities across the country. So we would be really looking in this instance for the Minister of Public Safety to be given some sort of mandate to look at this issue, to try to address it in a concerted way across the country so that we have some consistent standards that apply everywhere, and really take us a step forward to ending practices like carding and random street checks, which are the most obvious manifestations of racial profiling in policing.
Alex, we'll have to leave it there, but interested to see what unfolds tomorrow. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for your interest.